Hi friends, welcome to Drop Into Dr. Awesome. I am Dr. Awesome, and we're going to talk a little bit about color correction. Now, color correction and color grading are different things. Color grading is all about making sure that all of our footage looks like it belongs together and sort of has our own stamp on it. Color correction, on the other hand, is really about making sure that what we're looking at is as close to what we saw with our eye as possible. Now, before we can start actually editing, we have to talk about some pre-editing, some shooting, right? Because all good editing starts with good shooting. And in the case of color correction, what that means is white balance. You have to white balance your camera. If you don't know how to do that, figure it out. If you're using one of the Comm Studies cameras here at Longwood, I'll put some links below, help you figure it out. Like, it's imperative. You have to white balance your camera, okay? Right now, I'm white balanced correctly, but if there's too much blue in your white balance, pretty gross, right? If there's too much red in your white balance, it looks like this. Again, gross, right? And then if we have too much green, it looks like this. Right? Just no bueno. So we always want to make sure that we're white balancing on actual white. All right, now to talk about white balance, let's go ahead and jump on into Premiere, and we'll take a look at some things you can do to sort of correct your footage if it's just a little off, sort of, one way or the other. All right, now that we've got Premiere open, you can see that I've already got a clip on the timeline here. It's just a couple walking down the street, sharing a coffee on their afternoon walk. There's nothing specifically, wrong with the clip. It just needs a little help as far as color goes. And so you'll notice that I'm working in the color workspace here. This does a couple of things. It opens up your Lumetri scopes over here and the Lumetri color window over here. Now, these scopes look scary, and we're not going to talk a lot about them, but basically all they are is they're just different ways of reading the color on your clip. So, looking at this scope here specifically, you can see that it's yellow, red, magenta, blue, green, cyan, green, yellow, all the way around. And over here, this is up here at the very top is our white level, down here at the very bottom is our black level, and sort of the colors in between. It's just, like I said, just different ways of looking at your color, and when you really get in-depth into color matching, these become very useful. But for right now, just showing you the basics, don't get caught up on these. Don't worry about that too much. What you do need to worry about is this Lumetri color window over here. Now, when you enter the color workspace, it may open in basic correction, it may open in creative, it may open in curves, it may open in color wheels or HSL secondary or vignette, but for the most part, a lot of this stuff is very useful, but for just straight up color correction, 90% of the time, everything you're going to need to do is located within this basic correction tab, okay? Looking at this image, first thing I would say is that, this is a little warm. I would say that when they white balance, there was a little too much blue in their white card. I mean, you can look at her shirt here, which is supposed to be white, and see that it's got just a little bit of an orange tint to it, as does sort of everything in the clip. Now, I can come over here to my temperature and just take that down just a little bit until we see her shirt becoming a little more white. And actually, if you come over here, you can see these white lines appearing and everything sort of drawing in near white here. But again, don't worry about those too much. So, but that really just taking that temperature down a little bit really has brought a lot of natural color back into this image. Alternatively to using the temperature fader here, you can also, if there's something in your shot that is white, like her shirt, you can take the eyedropper here and come out and select it. And what that will do is it will actually just move all of the colors closer to white to really sort of even things out. Once we've got sort of a real white established, we can kind of start to do some other things here. Now, looking at your tone adjustments here, you've got exposure, and exposure sort of just adjusts everything, right? Up or down. The brighter your exposure, the higher your exposure, the brighter it is, the darker your exposure, the more muted it is. So I'm going to double click on that to put it back to 0. And I would say that looking at this, it's a little underexposed. We're going to up that just a hair. Not a lot, just a little bit, right? And then the next piece of this sort of window here is contrast. Now, remember I said this is your white level and this is your black level here. What contrast does is it changes the distance between white and black. It exaggerates the difference between the two of them. So the higher your contrast, the more differentiation there is between white and black in your clip. The lower the contrast, the less differentiation between white and black. So I'm going to go ahead and up that just a hair. And then we're going to move down to highlights. Now highlights, so what your highlights are going to do is they're not going to adjust your black level, but they are going to adjust colors in between your black and white. But it's never going to actually extend past the white. So for something like this, I would say we should up our highlights just a little bit, something like 10, right? But you can see that we're starting to blow this out a little bit, which is a danger you run when you start messing with your highlights and exposure. So I'm going to come down here to the shadows, which is the next thing on this list. Now your shadows adjust everything between your white and black, and they kind of adjust it down, right? So the deeper your shadows, the darker this image is going, the darker the blacks are going to look in this image. I'm going to take these shadows, I'm going to take them down just a little bit, sort of make that contrast pop, right? And then we've got white and black here. These adjust, so white adjusts everything above the black level, up or down. And blacks adjust everything below the white level, up or down. Now I'm going to adjust my blacks down by about 18. And this, so now you can see we've got a nice sort of, we've upped our contrast a little bit. We have some much more natural colors. We've got a lot closer to actual white on our shirt here. Their skin looks much more natural. And remember, this is not color grade. This is not the ending look for this clip. This is just sort of making it usable so that you can then apply the same grade you're applying to everything else. A couple other things that I haven't quite talked about yet would be the saturation here. Now, saturation is pretty much just how much color is in your shot or your clip. The more saturation you have, the more colorful the clip becomes. The less saturation, the less colorful. Typically, I don't adjust saturation as part of my color correction because my color grading process has so much saturation work involved in it. Also, back up here underneath temperature, we have tint. You see green and magenta, and pretty much this works the same way as the temperature bar. The closer to green, the more green your image becomes. The closer to magenta, the more magenta your image becomes. Generally speaking, I find that most stuff I'm doing can be controlled with the temperature and the tone adjustments here, but every once in a while you'll wind up with something that has a green tint because green light is reflecting or something like that, and you can kind of come through and adjust it here. And really, that's pretty much the basic just sort of crash course in color correction. And if you want to see your clip as it was versus how it is now, you can always come here to the little FX. And if I look at this, what I can see is before correction, after correction, before correction, after correction. And like I said, that's pretty much it. I need to work on my in Premiere portion of these tutorials. But yeah, that is, again, pretty much color correction in a very, very basic nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more that really goes into doing it well, but getting in there and actually sort of starting to play with some of those sliders a little bit and figure out what they do is really the easiest way to sort of get better at it. So that being said, I guess I'm done. Keep shooting, friends.